Should the Pittsburgh Steelers trade for wide receiver Courtland Sutton? I'm going to lay out the case for why the Black and Gold should consider trading for the wide receiver that used to play with Russell Wilson back there with the Denver Broncos. Then also, Peter Schrager put out his first mock draft of the draft season here. Some pretty interesting picks, including for the Steelers at number 20. I'll react to that here coming up. And then also, I want to tell you why I would be okay with the Pittsburgh Steelers moving right guard James Daniels back to center where he played his college football if they cannot get a top center in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, before we get into the news and rumors coverage today, if you want a shout-out on tomorrow's Steelers Talk live show, of course, every single week, every single Wednesday, Coop and I go live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the latest news and rumors of the week, to have you guys on the show, all these different things. If you want a shout-out on tomorrow's show, all you have to do is go give me a follow on X, and I will give you a shout-out tomorrow on the live show. So all you got to do, go to X right now or Twitter or whatever you guys want to call it. Find me at Jack_Sperry. I post Steelers content on there every single day as well as NFL draft content. So if you want an additional splash of Steelers news and rumors content from me, you can check me out at Jack_Sperry for a shout out tomorrow. So now let's get into today's top story, which is whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers should consider trading for Courtland Sutton, the Denver Broncos wide receiver, because he did not show up for voluntary workouts today. There was Sean Payton and company in the Mile High City due to his dissatisfaction with his current contract situation. Now, he has 2 years left on his deal, but he wants a pay raise, essentially, is what he wants in order to stay with the Denver Broncos. The Broncos have been kind of flirting with trading him, even going back to last offseason. They nearly sent him to the Baltimore Ravens in a deal after the draft. So they're definitely open to trading Sutton. They also traded Jerry Jeudy to the Cleveland Browns earlier this offseason as well. So listen, I'm not sure if Denver is going to be willing to trade Sutton, especially because if they ship him elsewhere, they've got a pretty empty cupboard at the wide receiver position if Sutton is no longer on their roster. But this is a team that needs draft picks. They're trying to get younger. They're trying to revamp now that they're in kind of a dire cap situation with Russell Wilson and all the dead cap that they're taking on over the next 2 seasons there in Denver because of that. But if they're down to trade Courtland Sutton to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I am down to bring him to the Steel City moving forward. Because listen, man, he is exactly what Arthur Smith wants in like a number 2 wide receiver, a true X kind of guy, 6'4", 216 pounds. So this guy is hulking. He's a really good run blocker, which is something that's going to be really important for a number 2 receiver in an Arthur Smith system. And it would kind of allow George Pickens to kind of do a whole bunch of different things. He doesn't have to be like that true X going down the sideline on those go routes all the time. He can run those slants. He can run those digs, all these different things. And Courtland is somebody that has an established connection with new Steelers quarterback Russell Wilson. In fact, they trained together during the off seasons. They're really good friends. Courtland is one of Russell's biggest supporters, and bringing in a guy like that into this locker room might help establish Russell as the legit number 1 option and the voice and the leader in the Steelers locker room heading into 2024. Take a look at his stats, man. Pretty darn good. Last year, 10 touchdowns with Russell Wilson throwing in the football. Now, he's had some issues in terms of staying healthy throughout his career, but over the last 3 seasons, pretty darn good job staying on the field. Hasn't had a 1,000-yard season just yet, but I have a feeling that if he came here to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he'd probably be flirting with that 1,000-yard range, and I do think he would be a legit number 2 receiver that is a deep threat, somebody that is a bigger wide receiver that is a threat in the red zone, somebody that's going to provide value as a run blocker and what we expect to be a pretty run-heavy offense from the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024 under new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. So out of all the options out there, I would probably rather have Brandon Ayuk if you give me the same deal or whatever, but Sutton, I think, is somebody that is probably going to be a little bit less expensive than a guy like Brandon Ayuk, and I think that it would probably challenge George Pickens' role as the number 1 guy in this room a little bit less. If you get Courtland Sutton, I think George Pickens is definitely your for sure number 1 wide receiver, but then your number 2 guy is also a good route runner, also a good run blocker, also has chemistry with Russell Wilson. I think that there's a lot of things about this that make sense, and because Denver isn't too keen on Courtland Sutton, and because he has a pretty decent-sized contract already, they might be willing to unload him for a pretty decent price here, and this is probably what I would offer the Denver Broncos for Courtland Sutton, a third-round pick. The Steelers have 2 this year. Number 98 is right at the tail end of the third round. I think this is a fair deal for a guy like Courtland Sutton, who maybe isn't like a star wide receiver at this point in his career, but he's very talented. He has a connection with Russell Wilson, and he is a fit for what Arthur Smith is looking for here in a number 2 wide receiver. So listen, man, you're going to be spending one of these early draft picks on a wide receiver regardless if you don't make a trade. So why not take the last pick there in the first 3 rounds, and let's get a legit number 2 receiving option so that we can go out and build along the offensive line in the early rounds of the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, listen, man, there's also another idea here with Brandon Ayuk that I presented yesterday, where Brandon Ayuk is a better player overall. I think he would make this Steelers offense extremely dangerous, but he is going to be a bit more expensive. So here's my trade idea for Brandon Ayuk. You can see it's going to be a bit more expensive. You've got to do a first-round trade swap. You got to give up a second-rounder next year and a third-rounder this year in order to get Brandon Ayuk in your building. So let me know, between these 2 deals, would you rather go with Courtland Sutton, kind of the lower-level wide receiver, but pay a lower price? Or would you rather go with Brandon Ayuk, an all-pro from last season, and pay a premium? Let me know which one you guys would rather do down there in the comments section. Just put Sutton or Ayuk down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and we're going to be talking about our sponsor at Mando here in just a couple of seconds as well. When that happens, go down there in the comment section, find that pinned comment, and let me know which trade you prefer. And now let's talk about our friends at Mando here, who have generously decided to sponsor today's edition of Steelers Talk. And you can get $5 off a starter pack today when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. Ditch the soap and step up to the plate with Mando whole body deodorant today. Developed by a doctor, this game-changing formula is safe for your entire body and knocks out odor like a champ. Mando is made with mandelic acid, which picks off odor at the source, keeping you fresh for up to 72 hours. Mando is available in solid sticks, invisible cream, body wash, cleaning bars, and deodorant wipes for on-the-go use. Don't let foul balls ruin your game. Switch to Mando and keep your body odor in fair territory by taking advantage of their special offer for new customers of $5 off their best-selling starter pack when you go to shopmando.com and use code CHAT. So this is an example here of their invisible cream deodorant. I've been using it here for about the last 2 months or so. I actually got a brand new bottle of it because I love it that much. It keeps me smelling fresh, guys. But honestly, that wasn't a problem with me before, guys. But how this has really affected my life is how it has affected the stink, or now the lack of stink here at the Chat Sports offices. Some guys really stank before. Now they don't because they switched to Mando, and it is absolutely fantastic. So Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, Cream 2 deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash, which I highly recommend, and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. So use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. A big thank you to Mando Whole Body Deodorant for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now let's get into Peter Schrager's first mock draft of this draft season. He kind of waited a little bit, a bit longer than he usually does this year. I assume he's going to put out another one next week. But in this one, he has the Pittsburgh Steelers taking LSU wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., which is a very interesting pick to me, guys, because, there's definitely some rumblings going around there that the Steelers might want to take a wide receiver early, but I think this might be a little bit too early for the Steelers, and I'll explain why here in a second. But first, here is Peter Schrager on why he thinks BTJ is heading to the Steel City. I'm still keeping an eye on Steelers GM Omar to make a splash at wide receiver this offseason. Could that be a trade for Brandon Ayuk? If not, Thomas is a special talent who helped himself at the combine as much as any player at the position. And he's absolutely right about that, guys. A 9.83 relative athletic score, right? So he's got elite size for the position, combined with elite speed. 4.33 at 209 pounds. That is unbelievable, man, how big this guy is and how fast. You look at that 10-yard split, 1.52. The only wide receiver with a faster 10-yard split was Xavier Worthy, who broke the freaking record for the 40-yard dash at the combine, and is like 20 pounds lighter, or maybe even 30 pounds lighter than Brian Thomas Jr. So this guy is big, he is fast, super explosive, great acceleration. And listen, if the Steelers ended up taking Brian Thomas Jr. in round 1, I'd be okay with the pick. He's a very dynamic talent. I think that his deep ball ability and his ability to separate down the field is going to work well with Russell Wilson's deep ball. But that doesn't mean Brian Thomas Jr. is a perfect prospect. The run blocking, even though he's a bigger guy, doesn't really play with good technique or kind of willingness in the run game, and that's not going to be something that I think Arthur Smith is going to love. Plus, his stop-start ability isn't all that great. Like, his ability to really stick his foot in the ground and stop or get going again just isn't all that great. He's more of a true deep threat, but at that size, over 200 pounds, the 3.33 long speed, the acceleration being what it is, and then he's also really good at winning down the field in terms of his ball skills. So he's going to be a threat in the red zone. He's going to be a threat down the field. I really like Brian Thomas Jr. He is a round 1 type of receiver for me, but I just don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to look at his film, and especially his run blocking, and be turned on by that, man. I think that they're going to love his ability to get open down the field, his ability to win contested catch situations. He led the FBS in touchdown catches last year, even over his teammate Malik Neighbors. So that tells you how much of a threat he is to beat you deep and in the red zone and really collect those touchdowns. But this is an offense that's really going to want a number 2 receiver that can run block, and right now that is not a strength of Brian Thomas Jr.'s game. So I do not think he's going to be the pick at number 20. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you be happy if Brian Thomas Jr. ends up being the pick for the Steelers in round 1? I'd be happy about it. I probably wouldn't be elated. He's not my first choice, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section by giving me a yes or no down there in the comments. So our final topic today, let's talk a little bit about James Daniels, all right? Because Daniels is somebody that played center back in college. Of course, the Steelers moved him to right guard, and he's played well at right guard over the last several seasons here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if circumstances happen here and they end up drafting a guard, would you be opposed to him moving back to center? And honestly, guys, I'd be okay if they ended up doing something like that, because there is a limited amount of guys in this draft that are day 1 starting centers in this year's draft, and I don't want to overpay for a lower value position like the center. Now, even though it's the anchor of the offensive line, they get double team help, particularly in pass protection all the time. So center is viewed as a lower value position. And, I just think that you need to get a good value at this kind of position in order to justify using an early pick on it, all right? So whether that be in round 1, round 2, round 3, I don't really care, all right? I just want to get a good value at the position, whether that be center, whether that be guard. And, if you end up taking a guard, and there's plenty of day 1 starting guards in this class, if you take one of those guys, I have no problems moving Daniels back over to center, because he is an awesome player at that position. He was one of the top centers in his draft class when he was drafted all those years back. So listen, the only guy in round 1 that would play on the interior that I would draft is Graham Barton out of Duke. Now, I do have a slightly higher grade on Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon in terms of his film, but he has concussion issues in the past. And, for a position like center where you're getting your head hit on every play and you have concussion issues, that is a major red flag, and I'm not willing to spend a first-round draft pick on somebody with that major red flag. So the only guy in round 1 that I would kind of be happy about on the interior is Graham Barton out of Duke. Super versatile player, can even play tackle if you absolutely need him to. But if you're drafting him in round 1, make no mistake, you're drafting him to be your center. Then in round 2, that's where I would take Jackson Powers Johnson, all right? It's a value here in terms of the player that you're getting. He is an awesome center prospect. I think he's a perfect fit for what the Steelers want at the position. But with the concussion stuff, I don't think you can take him in round 1 because of that. So if he falls to you at number 51, fine, take him there. Also, Christian Haynes out of UConn is probably my top true guard in this class. Great athlete, really good awareness, good hand placement, really good anchor. I think he could be a starting right guard in this league from the word go, and then you would move James Daniels over to center. Same thing with Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State, really high-end talent, and Mason McCormick, who had a top 30 visit with the Steelers this week, also a really high-end talent from the guard position. Then in round 3, Zach Frazier. I know he's getting some round 1 buzz right now. I'm just going to say this right now, guys. I'm a little bit lower on Zach Frazier than some of these guys from ESPN because he's a bit smaller. The play strength is just maybe not all the way there, and then the athleticism is not all the way there either. Now, he plays with good technique. He's tenacious. He brings the right mentality, and he's super smart. I think he's going to be able to be a starter in the league right away. But first-round caliber center, I think that because of the physical limitations, he's more of a round 3 guy, but that's just my opinion. Also, some other good center options. Cedric Van Pran out of Georgia. Bo Limmer is somebody that I'm really starting to fall in love with throughout this process. Hunter Norzad out of Penn State, I think is getting slept on. Right now, Pro Football Focus says you can get him in round 6, but honestly, man, you look at his film, I see a round 3 center/guard prospect there. Wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if he goes earlier than people are thinking. And then also a couple more interior offensive lineman prospects to keep your eye on. Towards the end of round 3, in my opinion, Christian Mahogany from Boston College, and then Tanner Bartolini out of Wisconsin. We know how good those Wisconsin offensive linemen can end up being in the league. So here, in round 3, I think that's where the value is, right? The longest list is in round 3, right? And they've got a bunch of good center prospects. I'd be okay with Zach Frazier. I'd be okay with Cedric Van Pran. I'd be okay with Bo Limmer in round 3. And if you're going to take somebody in round 1 or round 2 at this kind of position, which is seen as kind of a lower value type of position, I think you're really going to have to have a really good value, and you have to feel really good about the player that you're drafting if you're going to spend that high draft pick on that type of player. Now, let me know down there in the comments section, when is the right round to draft an interior lineman? Do you think they can't wait and have to go round 1? Do you think they can wait a little bit in round 2? Or do you think they can maybe wait until round 3 to make sure that they get the right guy for this offensive line moving forward? Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. Again, if you want a shout out on tomorrow's edition of Steelers Talk Live, all you got to do is go to Twitter/X right now, go to @Jack_Sperry, click that follow button, and you will see your name on tomorrow's edition of Steelers Talk Live. Can't wait to break it all down with you guys tomorrow with Coop in studio, of course. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and join us at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow for Steelers Talk Live.